Hey guys, Mike here. Welcome back to Mike's Monthly Movies, my monthly movie vlog that I do on this channel. This is my June edition of this. There are 5 parts already: January, February, March, April, May. This is part 6. We are halfway through the year and I have now watched, according to Letterboxd, 91 movies this year. So I'm nearly up to 100 movies for the year, which is pretty cool. If you haven't watched one of these before, basically, to keep myself accountable to watch more movies that I want to watch every month, I am watching movies, logging them on Letterboxd, and then doing a monthly roundup with 1 to 2 minute reviews of the movies that I've watched on this channel. And I would love for you to check out the other ones, as I already said. In June, I watched probably the most movies that I've watched all year so far, so this might be a longer one, but I guess we will kick it off. Oh, and also subscribe to my channel and everything like that. You also might notice I'm in a different space today. That's because I'm about to move house, so all my stuff is packed up. But anyway, let's get into it with the first movie that I watched in June 2021. Alright, not quite a movie, but it's one that I think we should talk about. It's Bo Burnham's Inside. It is possibly one of the most talked about comedy specials in the world at the moment. It is basically Bo Burnham doing a musical comedy kind of piece from his house in lockdown and his gradual descent into depression and mental health issues and commentary. This was really good and really funny. I enjoyed it a lot. It did go for a little bit longer than I thought it should, but a lot of the songs were just really cutting edge, and I don't know too much about Bo Burnham, so I can't speak to much of his other stuff, but I really enjoyed the social commentary. I really enjoyed the kind of dark twist the show takes halfway through, and I thought the songs were really well crafted. It was pretty funny. My favorite part is the part where he is doing like a video game commentary, and then he keeps popping up again and again and commenting on the commentary. I thought that was really funny. This is a great comedy special. I think I'd watch it again, but I enjoyed it very much. Okay, this one also not really a movie, but it was the Friends reunion special kind of documentary sort of thing-ish thing. And I feel like I enjoyed this a fair bit as well. I really like the characters of Friends, the story of Friends. I have seen it all. So it was great to sit down with these people again and hear them reflect on their time on the show, hear them talk about the show and see how they've all grown up and changed and how they sort of suit their characters as well. I enjoyed this a fair bit, but I definitely didn't think they needed to have the celebrities and other people talking about Friends. Like, I wish it was a little bit more focused on the cast. I mean, it was predominantly like 85% focused on the cast, but all the celebrity stuff, I think, like, was David Beckham in it or something like that? Just celebrities where you're like, what does this have? Like BTS, the Korean pop group, and I was like, what? Why are they in it? But yeah, I thought this was a really well-made reflection of this show, and I don't know, like, it is sort of a once-in-a-lifetime thing. Like, I don't see many other shows that could do a reunion like this and people would care that much as they did with this. The only one I think would probably be something like Seinfeld, but I don't think they would ever do something like this. But yeah, I really like the emotional focus of this, so I thought it was really fun. Okay, the first actual movie I watched was Weathering With You, this Japanese anime film that was pretty underwhelming by the end of it. I was kind of looking forward to this because I really like Ghibli films. Well, I like Ghibli films, but I feel like everyone's like, oh, Studio Ghibli is the best, their movies are so amazing. And they're like, some of them are pretty not that good. This is not a Ghibli film, but it is, you know, a Japanese animated film. There was also one recently called Your Name, and that movie was amazing. So I was hoping this could be similar to Your Name. It's okay. Visually, it's really stunning, but the story is a bit of a cluster, and I didn't really get too engulfed in any of what was happening. It was pretty silly towards the end. It's basically about a girl who can control the weather and starts doing it for money, like turns it into a business. But I don't know, I barely remember much about this movie and I don't think I'd ever watch it again because it was long and also really boring. This was a rewatch of one of my favorite movies. If you know me, you know that I love School of Rock. I think it's one of the best movies ever made. I think it's hilarious. And I haven't seen it in a very long time, but after the very sad news that Kevin Clark, who played Freddie Jones, the drummer in School of Rock, died tragically, sadly, and way too early, which really shocked me because a lot of these kids are the same age as me, and I was the same age as them when I first saw the movie. I just, in tribute to Kevin Clark, I wanted to watch School of Rock again, so I watched it with my parents, and this movie holds up so well. I still remember so many of the lines and the quotes, and then I went on this deep dive of like, where are they now of all the cast, and it's so interesting. And yeah, I just think what this movie was and what it was trying to do, it just succeeds on all fronts. I talked a bit more about it in my podcast 20th Century Boy, where I did a little bit more of a detailed explanation of it, but basically, you know, soundtrack, performance, slight emotional focus when it's needed, and the development of the children throughout the film and the way Jack Black helps them and actually figures out that he's good at this throughout the movie. That final scene where they're playing Zach's song on stage, The Teacher's Pet, is just absolutely amazing, and I love this movie so much and will continue to watch it for the rest of my life.
What's your name?
Freddie Jones.
Freddie Jones. Shut up!
If you watched last month's edition, you would have seen that I watched Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and TMNT, and I watched Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Out of the Shadows this month, the sequel to the 2014 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which I did a review of on this channel and said it was one of the worst movies I've ever seen. I did not go into this one with high hopes at all, but I was pleasantly surprised by it. Like, honestly, this might be my favorite Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie because I guess it toned down a lot of the really weird kind of sexist stuff in the first one, where Michelangelo wants to bang Megan Fox, which raises so many questions, and it just kind of focuses on the Turtles as characters and their dilemmas as a team and them finding themselves as a team. They have distinct personalities, and I think this really worked in the way that the first one didn't. I thought narratively it was great. The introduction of Bebop and Rocksteady worked really well. I thought they were great. The animation was really cool of how they looked when they transformed. So I enjoyed this a lot, and I think this is the best Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie I've seen. I have not seen the sequels to the 90s Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, because I hated that one. But yeah, I was pleasantly surprised by this. Ari Aster's Hereditary, this movie I've heard a lot about, I've never seen it, and then I checked it out. I got really into horror this month, and this is such a well-crafted horror film that I enjoyed very, very much. One of the best that I've watched this year, and if you haven't seen it, it's kind of like in the realm of like supernatural demonic possession kind of horror film, but real shocking moments, real unexpected, real gory moments as well, and just a really weird ending that kind of creeps you out more than anything else in the movie. Like, I think part of this movie that I really liked was how everything was kind of orchestrated from the beginning, but you can only pick the pieces together when you watch it again. So this is definitely one for my watch again list, because I've watched like YouTube summaries of this movie and there are so many different little hints as to what's going on that you just can't pick up the first time. Ari Aster is an amazing director. I'll speak a bit more about him later, but yeah, I enjoyed Hereditary very much. Next up is Only Yesterday, a 2-hour Studio Ghibli film that's more on the slice of life style than other Ghibli films, which are often fantastical and fantasy or supernatural kind of based. This movie, pretty average as well. It was very long and drawn out, and it's kind of just a Japanese woman kind of telling stories about her life. And to be honest, this was in the middle of a Melbourne lockdown here, and I may or may not have been pretty drunk when I watched it and also very tired, so I barely remember it. I wonder if I should even count it as towards this, because I remember essentially nothing that happened. And yeah, that movie is a movie I watched this month, and I don't remember anything particularly good about it. A Monster Calls came up on my Netflix, and I guess I thought it was kind of cool because the character that is the monster in this movie just was literally Groot from Guardians of the Galaxy. I don't know which one came first, but he's just a giant tree monster that's voiced by Liam Neeson, who also voices Aslan in the Narnia franchise, which I guess was kind of interesting hearing a tree talk like Aslan. I don't know how I feel about this movie. It's basically about this boy whose mum is terminally ill, and he keeps having these visions of a tree monster coming to get him in the middle of the night to tell him stories. And it's a movie that I guess is trying to look at trauma and childhood trauma of losing a parent, which is a very serious topic, but I guess I just didn't really get any of the metaphors. I didn't really get the point. I know this is based on a book. This was like a very okay film. The ending is quite touching and very sad, but at the same time, like, I get why I never heard about or saw this film when it was coming out and why it just popped up on my Netflix and piqued my interest. Like, I think this is a good movie about a boy who has to say goodbye to his mum, which is a very sad and obviously difficult thing to do. But at the same time, I don't think I'd ever watch this movie again, and I don't think it's particularly well structured in the terms of how it's trying to tell a story. I think it's just like this weird monster analogy, and you're just like, okay, cool. So yeah, next. Okay, hands down, one of the best movies I've seen all year, Midsommar by Ari Aster. And I love that Ari Aster is slowly carving his way into becoming this horror auteur. Compared to Hereditary, which was his first feature film, and then this one, you can see very similar stylistic choices in terms of music, choices in terms of all the storytelling, and I think it's really cool, and I'm really interested in following this guy and seeing what he does next. Not to mention the fact that this movie is just genuinely disturbing as a horror film. Like, it just creeps you out psychologically, and also just the stuff that happens is just so unexpected at points, and just the detail in which some of the things are shown, and just the barbarity of some of it really shocks you, and I think that's what you want in a horror. Ending to this is just almost traumatizing in itself, but this is a great, well-crafted, but very long movie, but I think it's worth kind of sticking it through if you're into like psychological horror and just like, yeah, just horror in general. This is definitely up there with one of the best I've watched all year. Going from one of the best to one of the worst, and the next movie that I watched is The Rite. This is just one of the boringest movies I've ever seen. Another horror, basically Catholic priest exorcism kind of vibes, but just super, super boring and woeful in pacing and everything in between. And I wasn't sure if this movie was actually like made by someone Catholic. Like, it felt like at times they were legitimately trying to convince you that demonic possession and exorcism is a thing in real life, which it isn't. Sorry guys, I don't believe in anything supernatural like that, but I think it gave me the vibe that someone Catholic made this movie, instead of it just being an examiner. Like, it was, I feel like it was pro-Catholic and pro-religion, which I guess is fine, but I just thought this was a horrible movie with a terrible story, terrible pacing, and just really, really boring and not interesting in the slightest, which is probably the most scathing review you can give a film. Definitely one of the worst of 2021 for me, which is a shame, but make a better movie next time, whoever you are. Following on from all the horror stuff I then watched The Witch, which is like a folk horror film set in like old times, where also religious focus, like this very Catholic family who is extradited from their town, and they are being haunted by a witch, and I really like this one in terms of like the family dynamics of it. It was pretty straightforward, I suppose, but it was also pretty gruesome at times, and what I really liked again, and what a lot of good horror movies do well, is they just have these really, you know, it's scary all throughout, but then the ending just has this real eerie moment. And in this one, spoilers, but you know, Satan kind of appears to one of the characters at the end and gets her to sign her soul away to the devil, which I just thought was really, really creepy. And the depiction of Satan was so different to what you would expect it to be. But I enjoyed The Witch. Definitely not my favorite, but a pretty good horror, different vibe, you know, this folk old-timey setting as opposed to a modern day horror, but I thought this was really well made and the attention to detail in it was great. Only a few left to go. This one is Batman vs. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which I believe is like a Nickelodeon kind of movie. This is an animated movie that kind of felt like a 90-minute long Saturday morning cartoon. I couldn't complain about it, but it's certainly not the best thing I've ever seen. It was cool seeing Batman, Robin, and Batgirl, I think, in this movie, which was a bit of fun, but yeah, I mean, overall, pretty average. The villains were all, like, all the Batman villains are there, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles come to help out, stuff like that. Batman says cowabunga at one point, and I'm pretty sure Donatello wants to bang Batgirl, and vice versa, which is another weird kind of interspecies weird thing that happens in this movie, but I don't know, I can't figure out what the Ninja Turtles' sexualities are, so let's just accept it as normal. At least it's more normal in a cartoon sense. Luca, so good. Again, up there with Midsommar for the best of the month, also up there for the best of the year. I did a full review on this on my channel. Go and check out the full video where I talk about it in more detail, but the simplicity of this, the beautiful scenery, the animation, the story is lovely, and just the themes of breaking free from family and moving away from expectations and traditions that you don't necessarily want to follow really resonated with me. This is definitely Pixar's best in a very long time. I enjoyed it very much. Only a couple more to go. Here's the next one. The Conjuring is a decent horror film. I, again, have been obsessed with horror this month, so I've been watching a lot of them. Apologies. I think I had seen it before, but I couldn't remember. But then as I was watching it, I'm like, oh yeah, I think I remember this. Overall, yeah, it was like a decent average horror movie. I am keen to watch the second one because I've heard the second one is even scarier than the first. It wasn't too terrifying. Like, I look at something like Midsommar, which is more, it's grounded in reality, but it's like, it messes with your head, whereas this is more like supernatural horror. But The Conjuring, I thought, was fine and a good movie, and I'd probably watch it again with friends, but I'm also watching a lot of these horror movies alone, so I don't know. SpongeBob SquarePants, Sponge on the Run. I have seen the original SpongeBob movie from many years ago, and I haven't seen any of the others. I was never a huge fan of SpongeBob growing up, but again, this was one of those movies that just popped up on my Netflix, and I was like, okay, I'll watch it. It's pretty bad, no offense. You've got like Keanu Reeves in a tumbleweed with live action, which just does not look very good at all. It's also the first CG animated SpongeBob, so it's all in 3D, and it does look visually really nice. It's very impressive. That transition from a 2D animation to a 3D one is always really tricky, I find, but I think they did it really well. Like, it looks really well animated, and like they've invested a lot of money into making sure it looked good, but the movie itself was pretty trash, and I got very bored watching it, and probably will never watch it again. Sorry, SpongeBob fans. Godzilla vs. Gigan. These old Japanese Godzilla movies are just like so crazy and just so insane in so many different ways. This one actually features Godzilla and one of the other kaiju monsters talking with speech bubbles. I might put a clip in of it here. Just one of the most bizarre things I've ever seen, and it implies that Godzilla and the other kaiju are capable of having conversations with each other, which I just think is so crazy. I thought this was, again, pretty average. Like, a lot of these kaiju Japanese films with Godzilla are just really lame. This one is really funny because it features like these aliens, these cockroach aliens who are posing as humans, trying to build a children's theme park called Children's Land or Children's World or something, which is really a ploy to bring Gigan and Ghidorah down from space to come and kill all the people. Gigan's a cool monster. He's got like a buzzsaw as a stomach, which is pretty creepy, but yeah, overall, this movie was pretty average. One of the worst Godzilla films I've seen, but they're always a bit of a laugh, so you gotta enjoy them for what they are. Final movie for June, Friday the 13th, A New Beginning. If you've been watching all of these, I've been slowly, and I mean very slowly, trying to make my way through the Friday the 13th series, and the last one, which must have been part 4, was called The Final Chapter. This one's called A New Beginning, and I think there's 3 or 4 more after this. This is definitely the worst one. They're all very, very derivative of the first one, which is like a shame. They're all pretty much the same movie. All the same tropes, different kills, but like the exact same thing. Jason is dead in this one. He is no longer the killer, and it's some other guy who was inspired by Jason. But I read that the next one, which is called Jason Lives, people didn't like this, so they decided to bring back Jason in the next one. Overall, these movies interest me mainly because, yeah, they're kind of like Paranormal Activity. Like, the first one was a hit, and then the rest are just derivative of that, trying to do a few different things. But I've actually heard the next one is one of the best ones, so I'm kind of looking forward to watching that in July. Overall, pretty average, and yeah. I guess in June there was a lot of highs, but also a fair few lows. But yeah, Midsommar, Hereditary, and Luca probably the top three. Midsommar and Luca definitely hitting top of the year so far for me. What did you watch in June 2021? What do you think I should watch? I'll watch one thing that someone recommends below. What's your favorite horror movie? What's your favorite? Have you seen any of the ones on my that I have watched this month? Comment below, thumbs up, subscribe, watch the other months, check out some of my other videos, check out the Luca video I talked about before, and I will see you in another video. See you later.
I went to run my hand through your hair and I noticed you were attached to string. You were a puppet this whole time, you were attached to string.